TIFU for letting my 4-year-old niece play my old Pokémon game. This happened a few days ago. My niece came over to my house to play. And after a while she got bored. So I let her play on my old GBASP. I also have an old copy of Pokémon Crystal. So I just let her run around and battle random wild Pokémon. Thing is, I thought it would be funny to name all my Pokémon after swear words, some really offensive ones too, and I forgot I named them after those as I haven't played it in a while. So I let her play it. And after a while she manages to pull up the screen that shows your team. And sure enough, all 6 of my Pokémon are shiny Feraligatr, shiny Gyarados, Blastoise from Red, Crobat, Ho-Oh and Tyranitar were named after swear words. Sure enough, she tries pronouncing them because she thinks they sound funny. When her mom, aka my cousin, went to pick her up, she told her about the cool new game she played, and told her the names of the characters in the game, aka the swear words. Needless to say, my cousin was pissed at me. TLDR, niece learned some new words from playing Pokémon.
Am I the asshole for leaving when my Bill wouldn't let me in the hot tub? My Bill just bought a new house. He lives about 4 hours from us. Last weekend my husband and I went to visit him for a few days and see the house for the first time. Long story short, I got my period while I was sleeping and the guest room sheets had a small bloodstain about the size of a quarter. My husband helped me strip the bed and I went down to the laundry room to pee, retreat and then wash the sheets. When they were done, the blood stain was 100% gone, but when we told Bill he looked completely disgusted. He inspected the sheets super closely for a very long time and finally I was like, Jesus, Bill, if you're looking that closely and can't find a stain, can't you trust me that I got it out? He seemed really put out by the whole thing. That night, we had plans to hang out in Bill's hot tub in the backyard. But after dinner, he told me that I wasn't allowed in the hot tub because of my period. I was shocked and explained that the nighttime leak was because I hadn't been expecting my period and had been fast asleep all night, but that it was perfectly safe and sanitary for me to put in a tampon and sit in the hot tub for an hour. But he wouldn't budge. My husband had my back and told him that he was being ridiculous. And it ended up turning into a big argument. Eventually my husband and I decided to pack our stuff and stay at a nearby hotel. And then we drove home the next morning. Now Bill is pissed at us for leaving and for not respecting his home. He also Venmo requested my husband $100 for new sheets, which he is refusing to pay, but trust that if the stain hadn't come out, we would have been happy to replace them. He told his whole side of the family, who've decided to fully stay out of it. I wish they had our backs more, but at least they're not piling onto us. So a husband and I are for leaving and not paying for the sheets. Edit. I swore I'd never be one of those people who did this, but to all the people who say sure, you're the asshole because of a certain risk that I won't mention here. BC, this isn't a medical sub. I'll just say that if Bill was worried about that risk for me, it would be a different story. He didn't want me in the hot tub because period blood is gross. Edit 2. For everyone asking why I even told him, it's because my period isn't a dirty little secret. It's a natural thing that happens to half of the adult population. And because I'm not going to sneak around like a cat burglar to do laundry. He heard the dryer buzz and asked about it, and I told him. Edit 3 Some more FAQs. Bill has a GF who doesn't live with him. She hung out with us the first night. That was the first time I'd met her, but had to work the night of the argument, so she wasn't around. IDK what she thinks of the whole situation, and I'm not going to reach out about it. And Bill isn't on the spectrum. He doesn't have OCD. And he's not a germaphobe. He just thinks it's gross. Should I be in shock at the number of people on this thread who are woefully misinformed on how periods and tampons work? Not the arsehole. Your Bill is acting like a child. Not the arsehole. I suppose there's arguments to be made about the sheets if the strain hadn't come out. But this definitely feels more like an EW. Women are gross. Stop being gross sort of tantrum. Info. Did you make a deal with a half-man, half-goat at a crossroads under the pale moonlight? Did that deal include making your blood dangerous to the uninitiated? Do even trace amounts of this cursed blood become ever-expanding portals to the underworld which will eventually consume us all? Not the arsehole. If he has every right to change the planned activities, you get to have every right to change your plans. Also, everyone says TSS is some huge risk in a hot tub, not realizing 1 in 100,000 is very rare. And that changing the tampon regularly is how you avoid it. Super simple. You just go change it. Info. Bill is single. Yes. Not the arsehole. Your Bill sounds like one of the worst types of humans ever. The types I avoid fiercely. Also $100 for sheets, ha ha ha. JFC. There's some absolute gibberish going on in these comments. The absolute lack of a functioning knowledge of the menstrual cycle, but sigh. Who's surprised? Face with rolling eyes. You're not the arsehole. Of course you're not the arsehole. Everyone with 2 brain cells knows you're not the arsehole. This Bill is an infant who needs a stern talking to from his mother. She can buy him a biology book. And you can whack him with it. I hate when I'm late and I have to scroll so far to see the insane comments. Not the arsehole. Your brother-in-law is immature, a bad word. Did he want you to sleep in the period hut too? Is his house unclean now? Not the arsehole, but your Bill is a major R. You took care of the unexpected problem, but obviously it wasn't good enough for him. Good grief, does he not understand basic human physiology? Counter Venmo. Request him for $200 for your gas, time, hotel, and therapy. Not the arsehole. Your Bill is seriously uneducated when it comes to women's periods. I wouldn't pay for the sheets either. You didn't stain them and they're clean. I'm honestly so baffled by the amount of uneducated comments in this thread. People need to do some reading on periods and TSS before spouting nonsense. Clearly the education system and sex ed classes aren't doing a good enough job if this many people don't know anything factual about periods. Like, wow. Was there a shark in the hot tub? Not the arsehole. I also wouldn't go back or invite him into your home. I'd say he needs to grow up. But my 6-year-old has a better understanding of this situation than Bill does. Not the arsehole. If he had to stare that hard at the sheets, he wouldn't have known the difference if you'd never told him. He'll be fine. Is Bill the same guy who shouted at his niece for leaving disgusting period products on display in her own bathroom, then stomped off having a tantrum? Let's just all hope he never procreates. Not the arsehole. Not the asshole. I would go out and spend $100 on red sheets and send them to him. But I'm petty like that. I am betting that if you took a blue light to his sheets, there would be much more to work with. Who knows how many times him or somebody else wanked off on those sheets? Or any sheets will he demand hotels lay all new ones for His Majesty? Not the asshole. Can someone explain to me why so many people are grossed out by periods? Whenever my girlfriends have gotten it in the past, even if it's on my bed sheets, I just couldn't care less. It's more or less fucking blood, what's the big deal? Not the asshole. Your Bill needs to grow up, as it sounds like he thinks you have cooties or something. Not the asshole. This sounds like a preteen yelling cooties. On an unrelated note, gotta say I am super jealous of you that a tampon is enough for you to stay in a hot tub on the first day of bleeding. For me, the first 2 days are a total no-no in the water. Not the asshole is your brother-in-law, Andrew Tate.
Am I the asshole for not taking my roommate's girlfriend to home? Getting up this morning, I was running late for my 45-minute commute. My roommate's girlfriend is in my living room expecting me to take her home because it's on my way. My roommate said I would. He had already left. I told her no, but she's begging me, saying she'll be late, and my roommate was called in early so he didn't have time to take her home. She's say Uber is too expensive, but I told her I'm running late and you're making me later, so I left. My roommate texted me calling me a huge asshole, and it wouldn't have been a problem for me. I told him he's right, his girlfriend isn't a problem for me and he needs to sort out that entitlement or she's not staying over again. He was blowing up my phone all morning that I had to block him after he suggested splitting the Uber 3 ways because everyone is broke right now. I don't think it's my responsibility to pay for his girlfriend or run her around. Not the asshole. After he suggested splitting the Uber 3 ways because everyone is broke right now. So you have to pay for his GF to get home because they can't afford to be in a relationship. Bet they have money for dinner and drinks though. Not the asshole. Your roommate had no business volunteering your services without asking you. Not the asshole. It's not your responsibility to drive her home or to pay for her Uber. That's his responsibility and his girlfriend. Not the asshole. As we always see in this thread, their lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on your part. If truly on your way, you could have offered to drop her off at a stoplight near her place and she could walk the remaining distance. But even that is still a favor. One that you weren't asked if you were willing to perform. These people are entitled. Not the asshole. So roommate didn't have time to take girlfriend home and that's okay, but OP doesn't have time and he's getting flack for it. And it's not even OP's responsibility. Ridiculous. Not the asshole in any way. They shouldn't have just expected you to do this without discussion. The Uber fee is on them. Not the asshole. I absolutely wouldn't do it if I were you either. It's okay for them to ask, but they aren't entitled. Not the asshole. This is simply not your responsibility. You're nice enough to even let her sleep over. If he wants her there, he better also figure out how to get her back home. Not the asshole if you would have been late by dropping her off. Roommate and his GF are AH for just assuming you'd drop her off without prior knowledge or planning. Maybe if you'd known ahead of time and could have worked that into the plan, but not as a surprise. Not the asshole. You didn't agree to drive her and you were never asked. His girlfriend is his problem. If they were really that broke and he got called in early, why didn't he just take her home early? My roommate texted me calling me a huge asshole and it wouldn't have been a problem for me. I told him he's right, his girlfriend isn't a problem for me. This made my day. Not the asshole. As you said, she's not your problem. Know your responsibility. For your roommate to assume you would to something like that without asking. He's the WTF, not the asshole at all, she's not your responsibility. He assumed you'd drive her home without even asking you first, set hard boundaries. F that guy. Not the asshole. It's his GF. And one of them is responsible for her getting home if she stays the night with you guys. Just because it's on your way to work doesn't make it okay for them to rely on you to give her a ride. Not the asshole. Sorry that you have to deal with a shitty roommate and his girlfriend. Looks like this will eventually pass. And you'll move on. Life's too short to be with shitty people. Not the asshole. It's not your responsibility. You the right thing and threw it back in roommate's face when he acted stupid about it. Not the asshole. That's between them. Not you. You're not a taxi driver. The fact he just signed you up for it and then left is rude as hell. And if he was called in early, he should have either left her some cash for an Uber, B, woken her up early and taken her home before going to work. Not sure how this is your problem. They're both complaining about being late. But not one of them cares if you're late. That tells you all you need to know. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Not asking you beforehand was their play. They are just mad you said no. Not the asshole. I assume she had to Uber using her limited funds then. Like, what if you had slept in longer? Was she going to barge in there? Dick move on her BF to ditch her with you. Not the asshole. He should have asked you privately and confirmed before making this commitment on your behalf. You are not responsible for his GF's transportation or costs. If he was concerned about her safety or timely arrival, he could have volunteered to pay for her Uber. Why is GF going to the apartment at all if she has not planned for how she will get back home? Our move to just show up and expect a ride. When I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers on school nights. There was a good reason for this. Splitting the Uber 3 ways. What? Not the asshole, he didn't even ask if you could drop her off. Not your girl. Not your problem. Not your circus. Not your monkey to take home. So not the asshole. Not the asshole. It wasn't your responsibility and they didn't ask. If Uber is expensive, tell your roommate to introduce this girl to public transportation. Not the asshole. Total dick move. I hate when I hear people doing that under the guise of, oh well, you have to do it now. No, you don't. Not the asshole, that is absurd. In TAR you never agree to taking her and no one spoke to you about taking her. They just assumed you would because she was on the way. You don't owe them Uber money. She made the decision to stay over. She can pay, or maybe next she shouldn't stay over and your roommate stays at her place instead. Not the asshole. I had no idea people were so entitled before I started reading this sub. Sounds like he can't afford to date. No. You're already late and have shit to do. Your roommate assumed you would without clearing it with you. You're not the one eating the biscuit. So you shouldn't be doing the favors. Why is it okay for you to be late but not the other two people? Not the asshole, and you summed it up perfectly to your roommate. The girlfriend isn't your problem. Not the asshole, it's not your responsibility. They didn't even ask if you could. Refuse to pay and firmly place the boundary that you will not chauffeur someone else around without them asking permission X amount of time in advance and must pay for gas. I got into this problem so much with my ex and ex-roommate. It's a huge headache and not worth the hassle. Not the asshole. Keep going as you mean to go on before you're buying only the brands she uses or paying to include her in groceries. He wouldn't drop her off because he'd be late, but he calls you an R for doing the exact same thing. He's totally the asshole. Not your pig, not your farm. Not the asshole. You're right. It's not your problem. But don't expect any favors from him in the future. Not the asshole. She needs to act like an adult and get a car. Man shrugging. Not the asshole. Bro, you know you're in the right. Not the asshole. This is ridiculous. Am I the asshole for letting someone drink my friend's beer and refusing to pay them back? I had a friend, Brian, over almost 3 months ago where he brought a 12-pack of Coors and only drank half of it. When he left the remaining beers in my fridge despite me reminding him to grab them. Since then he came over twice for little things and I told him to grab the beers he left. But he didn't. Come Saturday I had a couple people over and they asked if they could have the Coors, which I considered abandoned at this point, so say sure. They drank all of the remaining beers that night. Last night Brian came over for a minute and asked to grab his beers and I told him they were gone. He got angry that I gave his beers away and demanded I pay for the remaining beers. I refused because I felt he had plenty of time to take or drink them and that he abandoned them at my place. Am I the asshole? Brian wouldn't listen. Your fridge is not his storage space to leave his beer as long as he pleases. You don't owe Brian anything. Not the asshole. Plus, him whining over you paying him for 6 beers is ridiculous. Not the asshole. You leave your booze at someone's house. And it belongs to them now. That's the rule. Everyone knows that. Not the asshole. It's weird for him to be so demanding for money after he left them there and it's just beer. If I leave alcohol at any place I'm just like whatever, they can have it. He might be broke and this is his way of trying to get money. Not the asshole. A 29-year-old man is that pissed over 6 Coors. Yikes. In seriousness. He had plenty of time to grab them and didn't. Not the asshole. Alcohol is considered donated to the host unless explicitly stated otherwise. And if he had multiple chances to get it and didn't, then especially too bad, so sad. When I was younger, I'd be lucky if alcohol left at someone's house lasted until the next day. Let alone the next month. Not the asshole. He had to pay a storage fee. The fee was the value of the beer. Not the asshole. He had multiple chances to take his beer out of your fridge in your home. What did he think was going to happen? Was he paying you rent for occupying your fridge space? Not the asshole. When I get invited to a party dinner, whatever food drink I bring that doesn't get eaten I leave for the host for hosting the party. I bring it to share and don't plan on bringing it home. Not the asshole. When I would host parties you had 24 hours to come and get your leftover drinks or they become my property. Not the asshole. Beer left in another man's fridge is open for everyone. Especially several weeks later. And it's Coors FFS. Next time you're out, buy him a round and call it even. Ridiculous. Not the asshole. You owe me for storing your beers in my fridge for 3 months. Let's call it even. Not the asshole. He left them and had the opportunity to get them. It's just a few beers. That's pretty ridiculous to get angry over. If he really needed the money, he shouldn't have bought them in the first place. Your job is not the guardian of his beers. Not the asshole. Brian was asked to remove the cause numerous times. In spite of this, they contacted to taint your fridge. It took inviting a wild pack of friends over to resolve the offending items Brian should have quaffed or removed long before. Brian was not paying rent for that fridge space, ignored your reminders, and thus an hour. If he'd planned to drink them on a return visit and wanted you to hold on to them, he could have asked. Not the asshole. Beers left in your fridge 3 months ago are yours to dispose of. Not the asshole. Weird reaction from Brian, especially after so much time has passed. It's just beer. Not the asshole. He left drinks at your place. I'd expect my buddies to just drink them at that point regardless, but him being over multiple times and still not grabbing them even after you reminded him means they're now house beer as thanks for hosting. He's in the wrong for being angry with you and a cheap ass. Not the asshole. When food drink is left at a friend's, I assume that means they are free to consume it. You gave him 3 chances to take the beers and he did not. If he did not want you to drink them or that you'd have to pay for them, he should have made that clear to you. Not the asshole. You asked him multiple times to take them. Not the asshole. Even my kids know when you take drinks to someone's house, you don't leave with said drinks. You either drink them all, or they now belong to the host. You're not his storage facility. Sure, buy him the beers. Hand them to him along with an invoice for storage of said beers. Invoice amount being twice what the beer is worth. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. If he demands you pay for the beer, you in turn should demand that he pay for the storage of his property for an extended period of time. I'd say you're even. Not the asshole. That's barely beer. He should be happy that you managed to get rid of it. It was definitely abandoned. Not the asshole. Any food or drinks left behind after a party of hangout are usually considered a gift to the host in my social circle. So the fact that he legit expected his drinks to still be there untouched 3 months later is completely absurd. Your fridge has a holding out of courtesy time, and that's usually about a week. Not the asshole. He's a dumbass who doesn't listen. Not the asshole. His loss. Not the asshole. It's been 3 months. He didn't ask if he could store it in your fridge. He didn't pay storage. You reminded him several times to take it. He didn't. He abandoned it. It was free game for anyone to drink. But dudes, you're almost 30. It's a few cans of beer. Cause at that. Is it really worth arguing over? Almost an ESH for that alone. Not the asshole. He had a long time to grab the beers but he didn't. Your fridge isn't his extra storage for his beers. And for him to come grab it whenever. Also, usually most people would be fine with letting the host have all the drinks if they bring it over for a party or anything else. This isn't something he should be angry about and not something you need to compensate. Not the asshole. Also, cause is closer to water than beer. Not the asshole. It was left at your house despite you keep telling him to grab them. He have no right to get angry, and you couldn't pay him when you keep reminding him to bring the beers to his house. Not the asshole. He left them at your place, despite you asking him to grab them at some point. Yeah. He lost his rights over these beers. More than that. If the value of 6 fricking Coors Light is enough to piss him off, I would watch out for anything money related when it comes to him. Not the asshole. He had plenty of chances to get the beer. You do not owe him anything. Not the asshole. If he wanted the beers back, he should have taken them with him when he left your place. You even gave him additional opportunities to grab them. The general rule is that when you leave food drinks at someone's house, it is now theirs, excluding certain situations. E.g., someone asking if they can leave their stuff there for when they return. Depending on my level of drunk, I would consider that beer abandoned after 30 minutes. You know how sometimes on this sub you read the title and think a whole, and then the details in the actual post change everything? Welp. That's the case here. Not the asshole. After 3 months the beers were indeed abandoned. Am I the asshole for not letting my ex-husband visit our son while he was in the hospital? My ex-husband and I have a 6-year-old son. We divorced a little less than a year ago after some actions on his part. He was with another woman. I got majority custody. He gets to see him every other weekend. My lawyer advised me not to allow my ex to have any contact whatsoever with my son outside of custody time, as he could use that to get more for himself. Anyway, a month ago, my son got appendicitis and spent 3 days in the hospital. It was very routine. He was never in any real danger. My ex wanted to visit him, but I reminded him that it wasn't his custody time, and he had no right to do that. I did eventually allow a short phone call, both because my son had been asking, and because my ex was threatening to get the courts involved. My son is fine now, and he's practically forgotten it ever happened. My ex, however, has been hounding my lawyer, saying that he has the right to visit my son when he's sick. I expected most people to be on my side after how our marriage ended, but most people have been saying I was cruel. Even my divorced friends said they would have let him come, but I don't want him having any excuse to take my son away from me more than he already does, or allow him to weasel his way out of child support. You're the asshole. It was cruel. And unless he's a danger to his son, which he obviously isn't, then he should have been allowed to see him in hospital or when sick in general. Just say you're punishing out of spite for cheating, using your son as weapon to do it. What makes this is worse is that your ill son was asking for his dad, and you out of spite didn't let him see his dad. That makes you a shitty mother, IMO. Because no decent one would do that to their child. IDC if your ex fucked a billion other PPL while married to you. Grow up, because your son's needs come first. You're the asshole. When your shared child is sick in hospital, that's definitely not the time to flex your muscles. Talk to your lawyer about custody and medical events. Your son wanted his dad, and I think the dad is right in contacting his lawyer about this incident. You're the asshole. When your child is in the hospital, you should be allowed to visit them. Imagine if your child was hospitalized on his time and you weren't allowed to visit. Your ex was not a threat to your son in any way. Don't weaponize a child. You're the asshole. Extenuating circumstances. Being a decent enough parent to allow your ex to visit in the hospital is not grounds for altered custody agreement. Info: if your son had his appendix out during your ex's custody time, would you have been happy to stay away? I think not. Love your son more than you hate your ex. In 10 years, how would you like to explain your actions to your 16-year-old son? Your father didn't visit you in the hospital because I wouldn't allow it because I wanted to make sure that I kept custody. You're the asshole for making power and law more important than your son. Sounds like you care more about money than your son's well-being. You're the asshole, majorly. You're the asshole. Routine is a cleaning at the dentist. A 3-day inpatient stay from a serious infection is not routine. Sucks to see kids used as weapons like this. Saw the same thing with my parents' divorce and my younger siblings. You're the asshole. This not only sounds petty and cruel, but you are using your son by withholding visitation as a weapon. While your husband might have been tar in your marriage, what you did is simply cruel, and your friends and family are correct in their judgment of you. You're the asshole, and I seriously hope he goes to court and tells the judge what you did. You're the asshole. The visit was for you, child, not you. Stop making things about you any more than he already does. You mean the time the other parent gets to be a parent? Gross. This isn't all about you all the time, and you're already asking for your son to resent you eventually for the attitudes you have throughout this post. Major, you're the asshole. You're the asshole. And using my attorney said is a terrible excuse. I assure you any family court judge would think what you did was awful and not in the best interest of your child. That is always the bottom line. You're the asshole. You're thinking of your own feelings instead of what is best for your son's health and mental well-being. Did the kid want his dad to visit? It sounds like he did. Your ex didn't cheat on or abuse his kid. And it's not the kid's fault. His parents both suck. Learn how to co-parent like an adult. Don't abuse your kid's emotions just to get a rise out of your ex. Edit extra letters. You're the asshole. Absolutely. You didn't allow your son's father to visit him in the hospital. Let me rephrase it for you. You deprived your son of his father for your own personal benefit. Edit autocorrect. You're the asshole. Honestly, you just gift-wrapped him a very sympathetic reason for the court to give him additional time, if not outright custody. Of course, we don't know the backstory, but on the surface this is going to come across as petty and vindictive. Even cruel. Your son was sick and wanted his dad. You wanted to be right. BTW appendicitis can be lethal. Not common. But it's not risk-free. Your ex was right to want to be there. You're the asshole. What matters here is your son's comfort and wishes. He was in the hospital and asking for his father. You refused because your ex cheated on you. You can't blame this on your lawyer. This is straight up petty and cruel to both your son and his father. You're the asshole. You used your child to get back at your ex. You talk a lot about what you want, but what does your son want? You're the asshole. If your kid gets hurt on his time, would you want to see him? Would you stay away from your kid until it's your custody time? You set a bad precedent. Put your kid first. I get that you and your ex have issues, but you're making your kid suffer as a result. Your son was asking to talk to his dad in the hospital. Normal people allow hospital visits. You're the asshole. Because your son asked to see his dad. I understand wanting to hurt your ex for what he did to you, but you hurt your son in the process. Even the most routine operations can have complications, and your son's dad should have been there. You're the asshole and a toxic parent. You need to take a step back from your feelings and your resentment and put this in the perspective of your own child. Your ex-husband hurt you, not your son. Even your own child asked for his father when he wasn't feeling well and you kept him away. You weren't being fair to either of them. You don't have to like your ex, but you do have to find a healthy way to co-parent with him, cause this ain't it. So yes, you're the asshole for choosing your own feelings over your child's well-being. You're the asshole. You sound like one of those bitter parents who is more concerned about hurting the other parent instead of focusing on what is best for the child. You're the asshole. Big time. Love your child, Ren, and their well-being more than you hate your ex. Rule 1 for divorcing divorced parents. You're the asshole. Your comments do not reflect any concern for your child's feelings or relationship with their other parent. Am I the asshole for not letting my sister-in-law hold our baby? My wife and I just brought home our beautiful baby. When we got home, I wanted my older son to hold the baby. He is 14. But my wife said no. She said she wasn't comfortable with anyone but us holding the baby yet. I wasn't happy about this. But I respect that. As a mom, she's anxious about how vulnerable our baby is. So I let it go. Yesterday her sister came over and wanted to hold the baby. I said no. That my wife and I aren't comfortable with anyone but us holding him yet. My wife then said it was fine. That her sister was a special case. I said no. That I wasn't comfortable with it. Her sister was offended and left. My wife is angry with me and says I was an asshole to her sister. I think I am just being consistent. Was I an asshole to my sister-in-law? My wife is angry with me and says I was an asshole to her sister. By that logic, she is an asshole to your underage son. Not the asshole. But ask your son if he has ever had any weird situations with her. Not the asshole. What was the reasoning given that her sister was a special case? And your son, who needs to bond with his new sibling, is not. I'm presuming by unattractive inference about her possibly that your wife is not your son's mother. Not the asshole. Your wife doesn't get it both ways. So, baby's sibling can't hold the baby. But auntie can. That's messed up. Entire. You need to find out what's going through your wife's head though. Info is your older son, not hers. Not the asshole. Your wife can't make one rule for some and not for the others. Not the asshole. Thank you for standing up for your son. He is 14. Not a toddler. The day prior she was not comfortable. But now it's fine for her sister. Is son both your child or a stepchild? Not the asshole. If anyone should be a special case, it would be your son. The baby's big brother. Sit down with your wife and make a list of everyone you two are comfortable with holding the baby. You each get to pick an equal number of people. Info. What's the relationship like between your son and your wife prior to the baby? Not the asshole, but dude. You need to really pay attention to what's going on between your wife and your son. This looks like a big red flag to me. Not the asshole. If wife has a particular issue with the son, she should come out and say it. Otherwise, OP is just maintaining the stated ground rules for engaging with baby. Info. Is wife the son's bio mom? Has she had any issues or insecurities around him prior to this incident? Not the asshole. But you're your wife and you need to have serious talk about this. And your son is not a toddler. He could have held his baby brother, but no, he is not a special case. But your sil is. Kinda sounds like your wife is an Not the asshole, her family is okay, but your son isn't. She made the rule, she has to accept it. Not the asshole. If your own son who is clearly old enough to hold a baby can't hold her, then too damn bad. Her sister is not a special case. Info: does your wife have something against your son? Seems like her not wanting him to hold the baby was personal. Not the asshole, you made a baby with someone who doesn't love your son. Good luck. Info: how is the relationship between your son and your wife? Not the asshole. You both need to agree and she doesn't get to solely dictate the rules. Not the asshole, but your wife has some weird rules. Unless your 14-year-old son has some disability that would prevent him from holding the baby, he should be allowed that bonding time with it. Toddlers are often allowed to hold new siblings, albeit with some parental supervision and assistance, so a 14-year-old is certainly capable. If your wife can make a weird rule about who can hold the baby, then so can Op. A SIL doesn't get a free pass if a 14-year-old doesn't. I don't get the YTA votes. His son is 14. Why is the wife's sister a special case but not his son? OP comments that the son is his kid, so I'm assuming that's THR wife's stepson. If your wife has another child in the next few years, I'm 100% positive that she will let the toddler you share hold and kiss that baby and pose them for pics together. Not the asshole. You respected her wishes and her new role. I hope it was just post-pregnancy hormones and lack of sleep making her act this way. Not the asshole. If either of you are uncomfortable about something, then no means no. Not the asshole, but why was your wife uncomfortable with your son holding the baby? He's 14, so H is more than old enough, and I'm assuming he wanted to. Did she give a specific reason why it was okay for her sister but not your son? I do agree with you, you can't make a rule and then change it when it becomes inconvenient for yourself. Not the asshole. There's no reason your son can't hold the baby but her sis can. Does your wife normally exclude your son from things? Not the asshole. This is an absolute ridiculous precedent to set. Your wife can't unilaterally decide who gets to hold the baby and who doesn't. Especially when she's saying the baby's own brother can't hold her but her sister can. There is no difference. Not the asshole. It will go downhill from here though. Start taking special care of your son so he gets some attention. Clearly he has no bond with your wife. That's so crazy. My stepdaughter was fourth to hold my son. Only because I had him on Tuesday and we didn't get her until Wednesday evening. Literally kept everyone but my mom away until she saw her brother. Man. Ouch. Damn OP, your wife sounds awful. Not the asshole, you are applying the logic used on your son to everyone else. Consistency. Not the asshole. Your wife is a hypocrite. Info: how old is your SIL? Does she have any kids of her own? Not the asshole. She's a hypocrite. And this begins the evil stepmother arc for Op's wife. Not the asshole, my 2.5-year-old was next to hold her sister with us, of course, after me and my hubby. You're trying to include your son and ensure they have great sibling bond. It one rule for her family, one for yours. What about the memories you first son will have with his brother? It's not fair. I don't think you was being petty one bit. She made the rule, you just kept it X. Not the asshole, your wife set this standard and you made her follow it. If your son can't hold his sibling yet, the sister doesn't get to either. Your wife is being purposely unfair to your son and that is not okay. I'm glad you stood your ground on this. Not the asshole. You're simply following your wife's wishes. Your wife just made the first move in pushing your son out. Well done for sticking up for him. Not the asshole, you weren't comfortable with it. Not the asshole, your wife set a boundary and you held it. Guessing her real reason for not allowing your son to hold baby is she does not trust him. She did not need to lie. Your wife can't have it both ways. Your son is 14, so he has sense how to hold a baby. Okay, if he was 4 then I could understand her a bit. Stick up for your son and get your wife to understand her mistake. Not the asshole. It's weird that your wife thinks her sister is more important than her son. A brother-sister bond is something that is very important. That your wife didn't think it was very important baffles me. Am I the asshole for being petty when my cousin kicked me off her Hulu account? IF 23 AM, currently at college. I live with roommates and I don't have a lot of money at the moment. I can afford necessities, but I need to count my pennies before buying any luxuries. I have a cousin, Jean F27, who I'm fairly close with. I don't have any siblings and I think of her as the sister I never had. Last year, I was in a much better financial position. It eventually went downhill due to me being unexpectedly laid off from my job and a bunch of surprise expenses. Hence why I'm not doing so great now. Last year, Jean was in a tough spot as she had car problems and had to move back in with her parents after getting evicted from her apartment. She was working a minimum wage job and was really struggling. I paid the mechanic bill for her car, which was around $300. And I loaned Jean an additional $900 to help her with her expenses. I know the whole deal about loaning family members money and wasn't too worried about whether or not she'd ever pay me back. Jean paid me back $400 5 months later and told me she'd pay back the rest when she could, but she never did. Once again, I don't mind. I know she needed the money. I'd feel absolutely evil if I watched her be unable to afford necessities when I could have helped. But here's where I could be an asshole. A couple of months ago, Jean started a Hulu account that she pays for. She gave me the login and told me I can use it. Last week, I noticed that I couldn't log into the account and I texted Jean to ask about it. She read the text but didn't respond for a few hours, so I called her. Her boyfriend picked up and he told me that they changed the password and explained that he doesn't think it's reasonable that I get to use their Hulu without paying for it. He said if I want to share the account again, I should contribute to cover the cost of upgrading the subscription to unlimited devices. I told him that's fine, but no thanks. I'd rather not then. I'll get my streaming fix elsewhere. I might come off as abrupt or blunt, I guess, because Jean later called me and accused me of being condescending and disrespectful to her boyfriend. I apologized and told her I didn't mean to come off that way, and repeated our conversation to her. Jean said she was sorry, but they can't let me freeload. I laughed and told Jean that she can't possibly be calling me a freeloader. She said I am if I'm just going to use her for the subscription. I told her that I thought we had a relationship where we helped each other out, and brought up the money I loaned her, which she hadn't even paid back fully. Jean called me petty and said that doesn't make me entitled to use her account. I told her I don't even flipping care about the Hulu account. She said I'm materialistic for keeping score, and told me to leave her alone and hung up the phone. My aunt and parents are now also saying I'm petty and telling me to apologize to Jean as I'm not treating her like a good family member. Am I the asshole? Maybe Jean should cancel her Hulu account and use the money she saved to pay you back. Not the asshole. It's not keeping score to remind her that she freaking owes you $500 or that you gifted her $300. If you chance to talk to her BF again, ask if he's the one who's going to be setting up the repayment schedule. She should be paying you interest. This is ridiculous freeloading on her part. And until your aunt and parents make good on her debt for her, they have nothing to say on the matter. Not the asshole. You're not be petty. Call it a lesson learned and move on. Also remember everyone who took her side and make sure they're on your do not help list. The same thing will happen if you help him out. Not the asshole. Jean has some nerve. Letting you use the Hulu is the least she could do. This is her boyfriend and I bet she didn't tell him how much she owes you. They said pay or no Hulu and you said fine, no Hulu. You did nothing wrong. These people are nuts. Not the asshole. I'd tell your parents and Aunt Thar you will apologize when your cousin finishes paying you back the $800 she still owes you. Not the asshole. And never ever loan her money again. It's also gross that she's letting her boyfriend interfere in her relationships with others. I would distance myself from them. In a group chat I would just say petty. Petty is owing someone put amount here and cutting off a Hulu account. And just say if I really wanted to be petty I would be taking her to small claims court. Go recover the rest of the money she owes me. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Tell her pay the money she owes you and you can then afford your own Hulu account. Obviously not the asshole. It would have been petty to ask her how she was paying for Hulu when she still owed you so much money. The audacity of her to call you materialistic and petty when she's miffed over $10 a month, while owing you over $500. Ridiculous. Not the asshole. You help each other out. Jean should be able to see that. You're not entitled to her account, but that's not what it's about. The rest of your family are annoying AF for suggesting you should apologize. Not the asshole, but it sounds like the new boyfriend might be abusive and starting the steps of isolating her. Why is the boyfriend making decisions about your cousin's account? Why is he interfering? Very strange. I would be very suspicious of the situation. Not the asshole. You're not petty for bringing up the copious amount of money you lent her that she never even paid back after she called you a freeloader. It's not even about the money you lent or the Hulu account like you said. It was the audacity of her randomly accusing you of being a freeloader for using her Hulu account. After all you've done for her. If paying for unlimited screens was really the issue, boyfriend could have been way nicer instead of saying you're using us and you should pay us if you want to use it since you're just mooching. Not the asshole freeloader. That's a little rich coming from. Not the asshole at all. But keep an eye on her. It sounds like boyfriend is pulling the strings and manipulative. Not the asshole. They are. You certainly don't owe anyone an apology. He said if I want to share the account again, I should contribute. She said I'm materialistic for keeping score. Not the asshole. What hypocritical, entitled behavior from them both. I can only assume your aunt and parents have been told a different version of events. Not the asshole. Send an apology letter with a bill for the remainder that she owes you. Subtract the $3 a month that you used her account. Not the asshole. She owes you money. Deduct half the Hulu payment for the time you were using it and tell her you want your money. Tell everyone that's harassing you that they are free to pay her debt since she ghosted you, or 2. Shut up and butt out you don't owe her an apology. She owes everyone the truth. Or you can tell them you have to apologize because your cousin can't pay back $800. If you have documentation, consider taking cousin to small claims court. If anyone was being petty, it is Jean. She owes you money. Her BF inserted his nose into her business. Not the asshole.
Am I the asshole for refusing to forgive my dad for breaking our deal? When I was 8, my parents bought me a piano and signed me up for lessons. I was super excited because I love music. Over time I kinda became known as the piano guy at school. I play at school concerts, accompany the school jazz choir, and play once a week for the residents at a couple of retirement homes in our town. When I was 15, I started to talk about quitting lessons, and my parents quickly tried to guilt me out of it. I told them I wanted to try other things, and that between piano and studying, I didn't have much time left for other extracurriculars. My dad proposed a deal. If I kept playing and taking lessons until I reached level 10 RCM Royal Conservatory of Music, and continued to keep my grades up at school, he would buy me a new car of my choice. I jumped at it and we shook hands on the deal. I should explain that my family is well off financially. I have a very privileged life, but I wouldn't say I've been spoiled. If I ever want a luxury item like a new phone or game console, I have to buy it myself with money I've saved from summer and after school jobs. I should also explain that my dad's big on loopholes. When we compete, he always finds a way to win. And when I do, it doesn't count because of some loophole. It drives me nuts. But he thinks it's hilarious. Whenever I complain about him not playing fair, his answer is always the same: life isn't fair. So, because of our deal, I kept up with my lessons. I spent about 1-2 hours a day on piano, while keeping my grades up. Last summer, I took my level 9 RCM exams and passed, fulfilling my part of the deal. 2 told my dad I'd chosen the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid SUV. A couple of months ago, on my birthday, I came downstairs for breakfast, and my dad told me there was a surprise waiting for me in the garage. I ran out, and sitting in the middle of the floor was a 1/24 scale toy BMW X5. My dad burst out laughing and said, "A deal's a deal. So as promised, here is your brand new BMW." My heart absolutely broke. I asked if he was being serious, and he said I couldn't seriously have expected him to buy a 17-year-old a real brand new BMW, and that we could discuss getting me a reasonably priced used car. I said we had a deal and I fulfilled my end of it. He said he did too, since I never said that the car had to be full size and drivable. I said he wasn't being fair. His response: life isn't fair. Ever since this happened, I've been distant with my dad. I honestly feel like he betrayed my trust and that he deliberately made a fool out of me. He keeps bringing up the idea of a used car, but I told him I'm not interested, which I admit is kind of petty. I have enough money saved that I can buy a cheap used car myself. And I just feel like if I accept one from him now, it's like saying that breaking his promise didn't matter and that he didn't do anything wrong. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Life might not be fair, but that doesn't justify your father being cruel. I'm sorry he finds more enjoyment in letting you down than being a good dad. ETA regarding some of the other comments saying a 17-year-old doesn't need a car that expensive. I don't necessarily disagree. That's a pretty expensive car for an inexperienced driver. However, the father should have been upfront about the type of car he was willing to buy instead of letting OP think he'd get him one. Not the asshole. The key phrase here is the car of my choice. The toy version of the car was not what you chose. Your father is sneaky and manipulative. Not the asshole. Someday when he wants to come home for holidays, send a framed photo he can set at the table. There. You are home. You didn't tell him you'd be there in person. Life's not fair. Dad. Info. Have you always known your dad is Rumpelstiltskin, or was it this instance that clued you in? Not the asshole. Your dad has set a shit example for you. Life isn't fair, but you should be able to trust those closest to you. If I'm you, I'm getting out on my own ASAP and cutting off all financial dependence from them. Only then will you be free to be the man it seems you have potential to be. Your dad knew exactly what he was doing. And what he was doing was breaking his promise to you. Not the asshole. I wouldn't be talking to him either. And you are not being childish. My youngest child is about to turn 40. I'm not a fellow teenager. I would never have done such a thing to my shoulder B. It's a clear breach of trust. What your dad did was slimy and unfair. And he basically manipulated you into doing what he wanted but then failed to meet his obligations. I would never trust him again. He would buy me a new car of my choice. I said we had a deal and I fulfilled my end of it. He said he did too, since I never said that the car had to be full size and drivable. These two statements are contradictory. If he really promised you the car of your choice, the amount of wriggle room that he has is little to none. Not the asshole. Just out of interest, why is he so invested in your piano playing that he would go to such lengths to convince you to carry on with such an apparently expensive deal? No parent should be looking for loopholes against their children. He manipulated you and has then clearly enjoyed every second of his win. I hope it was worth it, as he clearly done significant and probably permanent damage to his relationship with his son. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your dad should have proposed a deal that he was willing to actually uphold. He was essentially manipulating you into giving up the opportunity to explore other interests, a healthy and normal thing for teenagers to do. I do think buying a teenager a brand new BMW is a bit much and somewhat foolish, but that was on him for putting that into a deal with you. One positive thing you can take away from all of his nonsense is that when you make a deal with people in the real world, be very clear on the details and get things in writing. Not the asshole, but there is a loophole. The cat of your choice means you choose it. He chose the little car. Your deal means you get to go pick the car out and actively choose it. Tell him he can be the guy who broke good word, or he can give in to your loophole. Not the asshole. Buy your own car and plan your life out without dad as a reliable backup or guide. If you feel like it, you can let him know that when you're able to move out. You don't expect to have a close relationship with him. You know that a father-son relationship might be something he expected. But you never promised it in those words. And hey, life isn't fair. Sorry, your dad's sense of humor and fake life lessons are more important to him than your relationship. You need to tell your father that he has destroyed your trust in him. And while life may not be fair, you do not expect betrayal from your own parent. I would also tell him that if he ever wants to see his grandchildren, he should think about changing his attitude. Or he won't see them, because we all know he will pull this same shit on them. Not the asshole. Your dad never had any intention of fulfilling the agreement but allowed you to continue pushing yourself for the fake carrot at the end of the stick. He played you for a fool, lied to you, and has no remorse for doing so. Even the way he presented the toy car to you was cruel. If you're happy to decline the used car offer, keep doing it. Let him know of the new loophole that aids a parent in alienating their child and pass on my congrats on that. Sadly, I don't think your dad will realize he has broken his relationship with you and that it's already too late. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. This was horribly manipulative but not entirely surprising based on your dad's history of using loopholes to come out on the winning end with you. In hindsight, unless your family is somewhat better than well off financially, you were probably naive to expect a $70,000 car at 17. But now you know what kind of man your father is. A liar and a cheat. Wasn't this post recently posted with the exact same plot, just slightly different story?
Am I the asshole for silencing my GF? I am 28, have been dating my GF, Nancy F. 25, for about 2 months now. We met on a blind date that our friends set us up on and have been seeing each other relatively regularly since then. I'm not entirely sure if we are officially BFGF, but Nancy seems to think so. Nancy describes herself as a bit of a mean girl. I honestly thought she was joking for a while, as she is typically quite nice. However, she has an awful tendency to insult people based primarily on their appearance. These insults can happen anywhere and anytime, and can be targeted at literally anyone. Of course, she never says these things about the person right in front of them. The other day, I invited Nancy to a family friends event we were having. My mother's friend, Sarah, had just gotten out of the hospital for cancer. Sarah's family and my family are very close. I've known them since I was born and consider them to be extended family. Due to cancer and chemotherapy, Sarah no longer has hair and is very thin. Once Nancy saw her, she started smirking. I literally pleaded with her not to say anything rude, and she agreed but told me that I was ruining her fun. Fast forward. I'm chatting with my mother F55 and sister F24. Nancy walks by and says hello. She chats for a bit before starting to make several highly offensive jokes about Sarah and her appearance. I will not repeat anything, but her jokes mainly pertained to baldness and anorexia. My mother and sister looked mortified, and so was I. I literally had my jaw hanging open for a good few seconds. Once I snapped out of it, I firmly told Nancy to stop and that no one found her shitty sense of humor funny except herself. She got upset and said that I was being controlling and misogynistic for trying to silence her. I maintained my position and reaffirmed that her comments were insane. She got even more upset and asked that we leave. I said it would be rude for me to go, as it was still relatively early, and she ended up leaving on her own. Am I the asshole? Update: I was complaining about you-know-who to my friend who introduced on the phone. He deadass told me that he introduced us on April Fools for a reason. Not the asshole. But what exactly is the appeal of this awful person? Hot sex? Not the asshole, but why do you still hang out with this girl? Info: why are you dating this girl? Not the asshole. If she's going to call you misogynistic and controlling for telling her to stop bullying a cancer patient, be prepared for her to label you an abuser when you break up. Not the asshole. If she's doing this as a 25-yo, it's ingrained in her system. There is no excuse for mean girls unless that's your thing, and that's another post for you to write. Anyone that mean to strangers probably has the same thoughts about friends and probably you and your family. To even make those comments about a cancer survivor shows a lack of empathy and a questionable moral center. Run. Wow. Not the asshole. But op. The next time someone brags about being a mean girl, take them seriously. It's still early days. Break up with her. She seems like an awful person to be around. Not the asshole. But YTA for thinking her mean girl comments were ever okay. For bringing her anywhere in public. And for not dumping her on the spot and throwing her out. Calling someone out on being disgustingly rude is not misogynistic. Not the asshole. But dude, you need to get rid of her. She's a bully. Not the asshole. Also remember her own looks will fade and all you will be left with is that horrible personality if you stay with someone like that. Not the asshole but your girlfriend is horrible and tar. Dude, why are you still with someone who enjoys bullying others? Especially your own friend who is a cancer survivor. You need to dump her because she's made it clear who she is and she seems proud of her behavior. Saying you're ruining her fun, which is deeply concerning. Not the asshole for saying what you said, but you're the asshole for continuing to date Nancy and for exposing your family and friends to that, knowing what she's like. Is no one gonna talk about that update? Your friend is an ass and you're a bigger idiot for staying with someone like your girlfriend after knowing what they truly were. Not the asshole. Pro tips. Try to find an adult for a partner instead of a grown-up child. Or you can wait until she grows out of her phase, but there's no guarantee it will ever happen at this point. Not the asshole. Dump her ass. You're not going to get those 2 months back. But anything is better than spending any more time with this immature, viper-tongued nightmare. She's offensive, mean-spirited and frankly, you should be disgusted and embarrassed by her behavior. Calling some out for being rude and disgusting toward a cancer patient and those with anorexia. 2 is not sexist FFS. It's doing the right thing. However, I do question WTF you are dating someone so awful. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Drop Nancy. Sarah no longer has hair and is very thin. Once Nancy saw her, she started smirking. Nancy is awful. But you know what she's like and you think it's okay to expose your family to someone like that. Not the asshole. Dude, you are dating a bad person. Cut your losses and ditch this mean-spirited, small-minded loser. Dude. Just imagine the things she will say has already said about you. You let her leave alone. Good riddance. Keep it that way. Not the asshole. She won't age well at all. Karma will get her. Silence her. GTF, rid of her. You're the asshole for still associating with her. IMO. Obviously not the asshole. Could probably write an entire essay about how inappropriate your GF was, but TLDR version. Be glad you found out about this lack of basic human empathy about her this soon. Leave her. Not the asshole. Standing up to your SO's bad behavior is hard. So kudos, her freedom to say what she wants stops when it starts to hurt others. Maybe you could have been more specific that her comments made you uncomfortable and you could see the same for your mom and sister. But I'm not going to judge you for not considering that in the moment. Perhaps the next step is to not tolerate those comments in private either, if they make you uncomfortable. Your friend introduced you to this horrid person as an April Fool's prank. I'd say he's not quite as big an R as the ex-girlfriend. But he's pretty darn close. This is a time to cut this friend out of your life incident. IMHO. Not the asshole, but you meant X rather than GF, right? Why would you even consider being with someone that awful? Smirking when you see a cancer patient BC they are bald and frail is a super asshole move. Dump this person. You're the asshole. If you don't break up with her right now. She thinks the pain and suffering of others is a joke. She's disgusting. Not the asshole, but also, what do you see in someone who is this consistently mean?
Am I the asshole for going to work while my wife was having her appendix out? My wife was having a ton of really bad abdominal pain last weekend. I drove her to urgent care Saturday morning. She didn't want to go, but I basically made her. Urgent care made her go to the where they determined that her appendix needed to come out that day. She called her mom before surgery. Her mom must have told both of my parents as well because all three, her mom and my mom and dad, ended up at the hospital to be with her during her surgery. Now here's where the conflict lies. I was scheduled for work at 5 p.m. that night. I've just started a new job that pays well. I only started it a couple of weeks ago, so I am brand new at it. I didn't want to call in. They probably would have been cool with it given the circumstances, but I still didn't want to do it. I didn't even have the PTO for it. I would have either had to take the day unpaid or gone negative on my PTO. So, while my wife was having the surgery, I went into work and pulled my shift. My wife is upset with me. She is accusing me of abandoning her. But I think that is unfair. She was having a completely routine surgery and she had plenty of company and support. It was unfortunate that I couldn't be there, and I feel bad about it, but it's not as if I'm a surgeon and could have made a difference. I had to work. Period. And I'm too new there to call in. The timing sucked, but my wife's health outcomes were the same either way. Her mother gets it and so does my father. But my mom thinks I should have called in. Am I the asshole? Info: what communication was there with your wife about this? Did you tell her how you couldn't be there? I think everyone here has valid arguments and it was just a bad situation. Fortunately it was a routine surgery and she came out okay. Congrats on the new job and all. I think the best thing here is to not try and decide who was right. Emphasize that it was a rough situation and you thought you were making a right call. Come to terms with future situations. Above all else, please leave your family out of it. Lol. Nah, maybe not the choice I'd have made, but you were in a tough spot with the new job. Also, you didn't abandon your wife, you made her go to the hospital when she was refusing to seek that kind of medical attention. If anything, you potentially saved her. You also knew she has adequate support around her. She wasn't alone. Nah. As long as her parents were there and you were there before and after, it is not a big deal to me. I mean, you just started the job and would like to keep it. You couldn't do anything for your wife and she wasn't alone, so I think it is fine. Not the asshole. Cook something nice. Bring her flowers. I would have said you're the asshole if both of Set's up parents weren't there. Nah. You have a good job and you are either forced to ruin your PTO and spend time with your wife in a surgery everyone has came to see her for, or keep doing well in your job. It's a very unfortunate situation and your wife has a right to be disappointed or angry, but no one is in the wrong. I think you're not tar for going to work. Seeing as you're new. It was a routine procedure. And she had care. What could make you tar is how you handled it. I.e., whether you were understanding when you said it. If you were just blankly going end of etc. I don't think she's the R for being upset either. It's how she behaves after. Which also isn't said. So going only by what's written. There's no however, maybe with more details. It could swing one way or the other. Leaning towards nah. I see what you're thinking. But appendix surgery isn't as routine as you think. This is something you should have discussed with your wife first and made sure it was okay you weren't with her. Under the circumstances of starting anew, you are not the asshole in this case. I'd not want my husband if I had one to call out from a new job. Not the asshole. Just my opinion with the given information. If I was the wife, I would have thought it's unreasonable for me to force my so be there in that situation. I already had support from family. In surgery there is nothing for others to do but to sit and wait for hours. I would 100% support my husband and his start in a new workplace. But I would of course accept him to come see me after he was done working. Now if it were a dangerous, risky surgery, would be different. But in this situation, nah. Your wife had 3 people there to support her. You are new on the job. I had emergencies come up but had to work or be fired. Bosses seem really supportive until you try to call in. She was scared but should understand, especially with 3 people there supporting her. Nah. It's fine for your wife to be upset and to wish you were there with her for your surgery. On the other hand, it's absolutely okay for you to be concerned. In America, that taking off from work so soon after starting a new job, without the PTO to do it, would jeopardize your long-term prospects with your new employer. These kind of trade-offs suck. I wish people didn't have to make them. I wish Americans had stronger worker protections. But we all have to make do with the society that we're living in, while hopefully advocating to make those conditions better. Nah. It's a difficult situation all round. New job stress, fear over surgery, etc. However, wife wasn't abandoned. Both sets of parents were there. In event of an emergency, they could have called him. Doesn't make her fears any less valid though. OP did right thing by taking her to hospital and being there before and after. I'm leaning toward nah, since she did have support while you were at work. You did just start this job, and while you had a valid understandable reason to call in, you had no way of knowing how receptive your job would have been. If you've only been there a few weeks, you are still in the probationary period. The only here is the American work culture, assuming you're in the US. Gonna go against the grain. Nah. Yeah, you could have stayed. It is surgery, but you had very valid reasons to need to go to work. Also, as surgeries go, appendix surgery is pretty damn routine. She can be upset that you went. She's not an for that. But you're not an for having your reasons to go. Especially in this economy. A job is pretty damn important. You're the asshole. It was important to her that you be there. That's your wife having surgery. Man. You could have taken off work all, but the absolute worst workplaces would understand my wife is having an urgent surgery, but you prioritized your job over your wife. Not the asshole. I would have been upset if my husband called out of his brand new well-paying job to sit in the hospital for a routine surgery. Not the asshole. You were with her at urgent care. And it sounds like you were with her at the hospital before her surgery. But went to work during surgery. When there was nothing for you to do but sit in a chair. Nah. Not about taking a day because of money. He's likely still in his probationary period. Jobs don't care. They will still look bad at you about it. This is the reality if, like we're assuming, OP is American. I've seen someone be let go from a job because she just started and her gallbladder went haywire and almost killed her. They fired her. Keep in mind, missing a day can be a small fortune to some folks.